Hey guys, welcome back. Today I wanted to do just a quick video on these new Huda Beauty Haze Obsessions palettes. I got a lot of requests for these when I showed them on my Instagram page, and a lot of you were saying that you thought they looked really similar to some of Huda's other palettes. So as always, we'll be doing some comparison swatches between these and other palettes in my collection. I know you guys find those really helpful, just in case you might have something similar already at home. But first I'll just show you some close-ups and swatches of these palettes and let you know a little bit of info about them. So these are $29 each. There's 3 different shade options and they have 9 shadows in each one. And I really love what she did with the packaging. It looks like it's not quite focused on this, but it's just like kind of a hazy effect. And according to the website, these are supposed to kind of give you like a softer version of a smoky eye. And I thought they all looked really gorgeous. That's why I ordered all 3 of them. But I will say there are definitely some similarities to some other Huda Beauty palettes. So let's start out with the purple one first. In this palette, you have 4 matte shades and 5 shimmers. And 3 of the shimmers, this red one here, this one, and the purple, are like that really rich buttery feel, while this one and this one feel a little bit more sheer, almost like a topper type formula. So you have a mix of different types of shimmer colors in here. I'm also not crazy about these 2 red shades in the palette. I kind of wish they did an all purple. And then when you see these swatched next to each other, they actually look very similar. This one is just slightly more orange. This one's a little bit more red, but they're super close. I think they would be on the eye as well. And I'm also not crazy about these 2 really light mattes in the center here either. I just feel like it's 2 really light shades, and normally I don't go for those that often because I don't use them in my crease. I don't use them on my lid. They're really just kind of more of a brow color, and you have like a really pale purple and then a matte ivory. I feel like I don't really need both of those with this palette. I would have been happy with one or the other. And then the rest of the palette is kind of on the darker side as well. But on the positive side, I do really love the purple shimmer shades in this palette. I think they're gorgeous. I love the purpley bronze shade, and the other 2 purple shimmers are gorgeous as well. One of them is more like a true purple and one has a little bit, it's kind of like a bluish purple. I also like the matte transition color that they give you in here, the brown. I think it's a really good transition shade for my skin tone. I also really love that deep kind of eggplant purple matte. I think that's beautiful as well. But for me personally, I'm kind of feeling a little bit of regret with this palette because I don't know if the few that I really like make up for the ones that I don't. Next up we have Sand Haze. I really like this one a lot. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Nude Obsession, so we're definitely going to do some comparisons with the light one and the medium because I feel like this is sort of a combination of those 2. On the website they say that this is an ultra wearable wardrobe of creamy nude mattes, pink bronze metallic, and a rose gold shimmer. So when I look at this one, I feel like the pinky bronze shimmer and the rose gold shimmer look really close to each other in the pan. When you swatch them out, there's definitely a difference, but again, you'll have to kind of decide for yourself if those 2 are different enough to warrant being in the same palette. This one also has kind of a deeper red burgundy shimmer. It has a gold shimmer, and this one I think is a nice mix of tones because you have mostly medium shades, but then you also have a couple of lighter shades, a couple of deeper shades, and it's mostly warm tone, but there's a couple of like cooler tones in there as well into the mix. And I love neutral palettes, so I think that's why I definitely was gravitating towards this one. And then last but not least is definitely my favorite. This one is Khaki Obsessions. This one I feel like is different than anything else that I have in my collection. It has a gorgeous mix of cooler like greens and pinks, and then also some warm tones as well that really play nicely off of each other. And on the website, this one says that this is actually Huda's favorite out of the 3, and it says that it's a seductive edit of olive and caramel hued mattes, warm brown shimmers, and a decadent gold pink duochrome topper. So again, there is a mix of shimmer types in here. You have the 2 toppers in the top row, the gold one and the pink one, and then the green in the middle row and the coppery shade at the bottom are more of your traditional type shimmer shades. In this one, you have 4 shimmers and 5 mattes, and I really love this color story. Like I said, it's kind of unlike anything else that I have. I couldn't really think of another palette in my collection that looked just like this one. So out of the 3, this one is definitely my favorite. It's actually the one that I'm wearing on my eyes today. So the shades that I used were this one right here I used in my crease, and then I put this deep green matte in my outer corner. Then I put the green shimmer shade on my lid, and then I topped it with this topper, the golden one, just right in the center, just for a little pop. And I really do love the way that it came out, and I've just been having so much fun with this palette, and I love mixing the cool and the warm tones together. I think it just works out really, really pretty. All right, so now that you've seen the palettes, let's go ahead and dive into some comparisons with other palettes in my collection. So first up, let's start out with the Purple Haze palette. And the first palette I thought of immediately when I saw this one was the Huda Beauty Amethyst Obsessions. But looking at the two side by side, I think the Amethyst Obsessions definitely is more of a purple palette overall, while the Purple Haze one has a couple of neutrals thrown in there. So they are a little bit different when you look at them side by side. And then when I swatched them out, I don't really see any exact duped shades here. So I think they are very different. They just kind of have that same purple vibe. Next, I wanted to compare it to the It's My Pleasure palette from ColourPop. This one is actually pretty similar to the Amethyst Obsessions, but at the same time, the ColourPop one does have that neutral brown in there, so I thought it might be just slightly closer to the Haze Obsessions. And when I look at the swatches here, I actually do see some exact dupe shades, or at least I think ones that would look really close on the eye. Towards the left-hand side, you have that really deep purple matte shade that looks really close. You also have, towards the right-hand side of the screen, not the first swatch, but the second one in from the right, the purples, I think look almost identical. Then the one next to that, that's kind of like the grayish purple shimmer, also looks really close. So I think this one definitely gets a little bit closer than the Amethyst Obsessions does. So next up we have the Natasha Denona Lila palette, and I thought of this one just because it has a couple of the neutral shades in here, very similar to Huda Beauty's palette. It's not a completely purple palette, and I think looking at these swatched out, the one all the way to the right, that purpley grayish color, I think is spot on. It's really, really close. But then as you go on down, I think there really aren't as many similarities in this palette as I thought they might be. Again, it has a really similar vibe, sort of mixing those neutrals in with the purple shades. But I think the purples in the Natasha Denona one are maybe like a little bit more bluish purple, whereas the ones in the Huda palette look a little bit more reddish purple. So that's just one point of difference that I saw. And also just quickly, if you like the look of the Lila palette with the purples mixed with neutrals, I also just wanted to mention the Wet n Wild VI Purple. This one is close to a spot on dupe for the Lila palette, which I showed in a video a while back now, I think in 2018 when I first started my channel. So I'll link that above in case you want to check that out and you like these types of comparison videos. Next up, let's do some dupes for Sand Haze. So the first thing I thought of when I saw this was the Huda Beauty Light Obsessions palettes from the Nude collection. I thought these looked so incredibly similar when I looked at them side by side. I just was kind of blown away by it. I mean, the Light Obsessions has maybe like a slightly lighter vibe, slightly more cool toned. But then when I swatched them side by side, I did see a couple of like the matte shades towards the left-hand side of the screen that I thought looked close, like the light pink and the light peach. But other than that, I think that the Nude Light Obsessions is way more cool toned, while the new one has a couple cool tones, but it's mostly on the warmer side. So that's when I decided to compare it to the Nude Medium Obsessions from Huda, because that one definitely has a warmer vibe. And looking at these two side by side, I do see some similarities, but I also think that the Nude Medium might be just slightly warmer even than the Haze Obsessions. So when I saw them swatched out, they were actually more alike than I thought they were going to be. I do see a lot of dupe shades in here, but I think where these palettes differ the most is towards the left-hand side of your screen. I think those matte swatches, like the last three, are a little bit deeper and warmer in the Nude Medium Obsessions, whereas in the Sand Haze palette, they're a lot lighter. So the last comparison I have for the Sand Haze palette is the LA Girl Pro Mastery palette. I love this palette. It has those beautiful rosy tone neutrals, and I immediately thought of it when I saw Sand Haze. The LA Girl has a lot more shades to choose from, and also the formula is incredible. I highly recommend this palette if you can still get your hands on it. It's beautiful. And then looking at these two swatched out side by side, I was kind of blown away by how similar they really are. And not only that, but look at the shine and the intensity on those shimmers in the LA Girl palette. I think they're just above and beyond the shimmers that are in the Huda palette. They almost make them look dull in comparison. So if you like a really foiled, vibrant shimmer, definitely check out the LA Girl palette, or if you have it already, chances are you really don't need the Sand Haze because they are really, really close. And then last but not least, let's do some comparisons for Khaki Haze, and we'll start with the Juvia's Place Nomad palette. I actually wasn't going to do any comparisons for this one because I thought it was a really unique palette in my collection. Then one of you guys had actually asked me to do this comparison, and it kind of sent me down a rabbit hole, and I ended up finding a couple of different palettes to compare this one to. So first, looking at these two side by side, I actually do see a lot of similarities, minus those bright yellow shades in the Juvia's Place. I think these both have like the green mixed with warm tones kind of vibe. Looking at the swatches, if you start on the right hand side of the screen and go backwards like 5 swatches, I think these are almost identical. I think they would look really, really close on the eye. Where these two palettes differ the most is on the right hand side of the screen. The Juvia's Place has a lot more matte shades in it. It only has 2 shimmers, so you have a lot more mattes to work with, and also those yellows and the deep forest green matte are just completely different than what's in the Huda palette. So while I think you do have some similar shades between these two, I wouldn't exactly call them dupes. I think it would just depend on what you're looking for. If you like and would use those yellows, I would go with the Juvia's. If you like more of those warm tones, then maybe go with the Huda. Another potentially similar palette I thought of was the Natasha Denona Mini Retro palette. This one also has that same vibe with like the greens mixed with the pinks. So I also saw a lot of similarities between these two, even though the Natasha Denona one is a lot smaller. And then when I looked at the swatches, again, I think the same vibe is there, but the greens in the Natasha Denona one are more like bluish greens, while the Huda ones are more on the olivey side. So I kind of see the Mini Retro palette as more of like a summery vibe, and then the Huda one as a little bit deeper and smokier and more fall-like. But if you love the idea of greens mixed with pinks, I think you really couldn't go wrong with either one of these. And then the last comparison I have is with the Melt Cosmetics Gemini palette. This is another one where you have greens mixed with warm tones, so I thought there could be some similarities there. And looking at the two side by side, I actually was getting really excited thinking that this one was going to be a close dupe. And once I swatched them out, I do think while a lot of it is similar, there are also some differences. I think the greens in the Melt palette are a little bit brighter, whereas the ones in the Huda palette, again, they're more deep and more olivey looking. And then they do both have some warm tones, but then they differ again kind of towards the left-hand side of the swatches, where you have those yellowy colors in the Melt palette, whereas in the Khaki Obsessions palette, you have more of those pink tones. All right, guys, so my final thoughts on the new Huda Beauty Haze Obsessions are that I'm kind of having regrets picking up these, but I definitely don't regret this one. I love this palette, and I think if I could go back, I would just buy this one and skip these two, mainly because this one, I'm not really a fan of the color story, and I do feel like I have some similar things in my collection. This one, I do like the color story, but it's just too similar to things that I already own, and I wasn't really thinking. I just kind of had like a one-track mind. I saw new Obsessions palettes, and I collect these, so I just bought all 3. But really, I think I'm going to get the most use out of the Khaki one. It's a little bit more unique of a color story, and it's perfect for this time of year. I think it's a gorgeous fall palette with the greens and the warm tones, and I think I can make some really beautiful looks with it. So anyway, guys, I'd love to hear what you think down in the comments below. Are you planning on picking these up? Have you done it already, or are you planning to skip them? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button right here in the corner of your screen, and also please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button as well if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you in my next one. Take care. Bye.